The stage lights of America's Got Talent glowed brighter than usual that night, washing the vast theater in warm gold and soft white. The audience buzzed with anticipation, not knowing exactly why, only feeling that something special was about to happen. Backstage, among performers pacing nervously, stretching, whispering prayers, and clutching Lucky Charms, stood a boy so small he almost disappeared into the shadows of the curtain. He was only 10 years old. His name was Miguel Santos, and he was about to walk onto a stage that had transformed ordinary lives into legends. Miguel's feet barely touched the floor as he sat on a tall chair, swinging his legs back and forth. His hands trembled, not from fear exactly, but from the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. He wore a simple black suit that his mother had carefully altered by hand, stitching late into the night so it would fit his slender frame. The suit wasn't expensive, but it was clean, crisp, and carried all the love his family could sew into its seams. His polished shoes reflected the light, and in that reflection, Miguel saw not just himself, but the faces of everyone who had believed in him from the very beginning. He thought of his home in the Philippines, a modest house with thin walls where sounds traveled easily. He remembered the mornings when roosters crowed before the sun rose and the evenings when the air buzzed with cicadas. Music had always been part of that house. It spilled from an old radio balanced precariously on a shelf, its antenna bent just enough to catch stations when the wind was right. That radio was Miguel's first teacher. While other children sang pop songs, Miguel gravitated toward something different. One evening, while turning the dial, he stumbled upon an opera broadcast. The voices soaring through the crackling speaker felt larger than life, powerful and emotional, like stories being told without words he fully understood. Even as a child, he felt them deep inside his chest. Miguel began to imitate those voices, standing in front of a cracked mirror, lifting his chin the way he had seen opera singers do on television. At first, his family laughed, not mockingly, but with affection. It was unusual, after all, to hear a small Filipino boy singing arias meant for grand theaters. But laughter slowly turned into awe. There was something in Miguel's voice, something pure and resonant, something far beyond his years. His father, a construction worker who came home exhausted every night, would sit quietly and listen, his tired eyes softening as Miguel sang. His mother would pause her chores, wiping her hands on her apron, feeling tears gather without fully knowing why. Opportunities were scarce, formal lessons were expensive, and opera was not exactly a common path for children in their neighborhood. Miguel learned mostly by listening and copying. He studied YouTube videos whenever the internet connection allowed, replaying performances again and again until he could match the phrasing, the breathing, the emotion. Sometimes the connection would drop in the middle of a song, and Miguel would continue singing anyway, filling in the missing notes from memory. Music, for him, didn't stop just because the signal did. When his school held talent programs, Miguel stood out instantly. Teachers were stunned, classmates were silent, and whispers spread quickly beyond the classroom walls. Someone recorded him on a phone. That video found its way online. Then, one day, a message arrived that felt unreal. America's Got Talent wanted him to audition. The journey to America was the farthest Miguel had ever been from home. The airplane itself felt like a miracle. He pressed his face to the window, watching clouds stretch endlessly below, wondering how a boy from a small house could suddenly be crossing oceans because of his voice. His parents sat beside him, holding his hands tightly during takeoff. They were excited, terrified, and grateful all at once. Now, backstage, a production assistant crouched in front of Miguel, adjusting the microphone clipped to his lapel. "You ready, buddy?" she asked gently. Miguel nodded, though his heart was pounding so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. He closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath, the same way he always did before singing. In that breath lived his home, his family, his struggles, his dreams. The announcer's voice boomed through the theater, introducing the next act. Miguel stood, smoothing his suit with nervous fingers. As the curtain began to part, the noise of the audience washed over him like a wave. He stepped forward, each step feeling heavier than the last, until he stood at the center of the stage under a single spotlight. From the judge's table, Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He had seen thousands of performers, many claiming to be prodigies, many hoping to impress. Age, to him, was never enough. Talent was all that mattered. Sofia Vergara smiled warmly, already charmed by Miguel's small stature. Howie Mandel leaned forward with curiosity, and Heidi Klum tilted her head, studying the boy with interest. Miguel introduced himself in a soft but steady voice. He shared his age, his home country, and his love for opera. The audience murmured when he mentioned he was only 10. Opera was demanding even for adults. Simon raised an eyebrow slightly. Opera, he repeated. That's a big choice. Miguel nodded. Yes, sir. There was a pause, thick and heavy, before the music began. The first notes floated through the theater, gentle and restrained. Miguel closed his eyes. When he opened his mouth, something extraordinary happened. His voice emerged rich and clear, filling the space with a depth that seemed impossible from someone so young. It wasn't just technically impressive, it was emotional. Each note carried intention, each phrase shaped with care. The audience leaned in. Whispers stopped. Phones lowered. The sound wrapped around the room, echoing off walls that had heard countless performances, yet seemed to vibrate differently now. Miguel sang with his entire body, his small hands opening and closing slightly as if releasing the music into the air. He wasn't performing for applause. He was telling a story the only way he knew how. Simon's posture changed. His arms slowly uncrossed. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the boy. There was no smirk, no skepticism now. Only focus. As the song built, Miguel's voice soared higher, stronger, carrying a sense of longing and hope that transcended language. It felt ancient and fresh at the same time, like something the world had been waiting to hear. Sofia's eyes glistened. Howie's mouth fell slightly open. Heidi brought a hand to her chest. The audience erupted into applause midway through the performance, unable to contain themselves, but Miguel continued, undistracted, riding the wave of sound he had created. As the final note rang out, lingering in the air like a held breath, silence followed. A deep, reverent silence. Then the theater exploded. The crowd rose to its feet, cheers crashing like thunder. Miguel stood frozen for a second, overwhelmed, before a shy smile spread across his face. The judges stood as well, clapping enthusiastically. Simon remained seated for a moment longer, staring at Miguel. His eyes shone in a way rarely seen on that stage. He stood slowly, applauding, and when the noise finally softened enough for him to speak, his voice carried emotion he didn't bother to hide. I'm going to be honest with you, Simon said. I didn't know what to expect when you said opera. But that was breathtaking. He paused, clearing his throat. You have a gift, Miguel. Not just a good voice. A real gift. Miguel felt his throat tighten. He nodded, gripping the microphone with both hands. You reminded me why music matters, Simon continued. Why it can stop people in their tracks. And to do that at 10 years old, it's extraordinary. The audience cheered again. Sofia spoke next, praising Miguel's bravery and talent, telling him how proud his family must be. Howie joked that he felt like he had just witnessed something historic. Heidi called him magical, her voice trembling. Then Simon raised his hand, quieting the room. Miguel's heart raced. He had watched the show back home. He knew what that pause could mean. Simon looked at him, really looked at him, and smiled. I think the world needs to hear more of you, Simon said. And I don't want to wait. He reached out and slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. The sound echoed like a heartbeat. Gold confetti burst from above, cascading down in shimmering waves. Miguel gasped, eyes wide, as golden flakes rained around him. The audience screamed. The judges laughed and clapped. For a moment, Miguel forgot how to breathe. Tears streamed down his face as he looked up, watching the confetti fall, feeling it land on his shoulders, his hair, his hands. He thought of his parents, watching from the wings, crying openly, holding each other as if afraid this moment might disappear if they let go. Miguel covered his mouth, overwhelmed. He bowed slightly, again and again, unsure how else to express the gratitude bursting inside him. Simon walked onto the stage, placing a gentle hand on Miguel's shoulder. Never forget this feeling, Simon said quietly. You earned it. Backstage, Miguel collapsed into his parents' arms, sobbing with joy. Cameras captured every second, but the most powerful moments were the ones unseen, the whispered prayers of thanks, the quiet realization that their lives had just changed forever. In the days that followed, Miguel's audition spread across the world. Millions watched and rewatched the video, marveling at the tiny boy with the enormous voice. Messages poured in from strangers, opera singers, teachers, parents, and children who saw themselves in Miguel's journey. He became a symbol of possibility, proof that talent knows no age, no borders, no limitations. Yet, amid the whirlwind, Miguel remained the same boy who loved to sing in front of a mirror. He still called his grandparents back home, still missed the sound of roosters in the morning, still practiced diligently, knowing that the golden buzzer was not an ending, but a beginning. On the AGT stage, he would sing again, carrying not just his dreams, but the dreams of countless others who dared to believe that even the smallest voice could make the biggest impact. And every time he opened his mouth to sing, there would always be a trace of that first night, when a 10-year-old Filipino boy reminded the world of the pure, unstoppable power of music.